Hi. Today's book, A Spy Among Friends by Ben MacIntyre, who is the modern chronicler of the espionage and special forces world. He has written many very popular histories of particular aspects of espionage cases, World War II, Cold War, etc. And his books are always well worth reading. He's got excellent sources, but also he describes the material in a very accessible way. He makes the characters come alive. And the title of this book, A Spy Among Friends, is a kind of sideways look at the nickname of the Secret Intelligence Service, which is the Friends. So Philby was a spy amongst the British spy establishment. I mentioned that Ben MacIntyre really does bring characters to life, and what a cast of characters in this particular book. The book doesn't really start with Philby, but it starts with another British intelligence officer, Nicholas Elliot. And Nicholas Elliot was very much influenced by his father, Sir Charles Aurelius Elliot, who had some real quirks. Music made him ill. He despised any form of heating. He thought dealing with foreigners, the best thing was to shout loudly at them in English. And he said that all foreigners are bloody unless they climb mountains, except for the Germans, who are bloody even if they do. So through his father, Nicholas Elliot was sent to Durnford boarding school, which the headmaster used to make the small boys jump naked into the pond every morning while he watched them, while every evening his wife used to enjoy reading literature out loud with her feet resting on the backs of two small boys while a third tickled her feet. What a couple. After that boarding school, Nicholas Elliot went to Eton, and then he was later recruited into SIS, Secret Intelligence Service, over a glass of champagne. Inside MI6 or SIS, he very quickly made friends with Kim Philby. And obviously this book mainly is about Philby. Philby was a journalist, goes right into all his motivations and so on in his journalistic career. But he was persuaded into Marxism at a fairly early stage, and he never wavered from that path, even though it was something of a difficult feat, particularly when you had the Ribbentrop-Molotov Pact, where Nazi Germany and Stalinist Soviet Union were allies. His beliefs never wavered. His case officer, his first handler, was codenamed Otto, and his real name was Arnold Deutsch, and he was a very well-read, very cultured man who Philby admired greatly, and he spoke several languages and so on. And his brother was Oscar Deutsch, who founded the Odeon chain of cinemas. And Odeon stands for Oscar Deutsch and Entertains Our Nation. After Otto, Philby had two other handlers who he similarly got on with, who he found to be very pleasant company and very easy to talk to and equally cultured. But the three of them, his first three handlers, were all recalled to Moscow, brutally interrogated in the Lubyanka, given a show trial and executed. and even this didn't waver his determination to spy for Moscow. And the book really does reveal his treachery, because he sent reports in about all the people he met, including Nicholas Elliot. And even though he used to go drinking with him, and they were family friends and so on, each other's houses, his pen picture of Nicholas Elliot was far from flattering. So later on they worked together in Section V, counterintelligence section. Nicholas Elliot had a really good career. He started off in the Netherlands, where he was able to rescue our top spy in the German government and get him back to England to safety. And he avoided being involved in the Venlo incident with Best and Stevens, who are the two SIS representatives in the Holland who were duped by Walter Schellenberg of the SD and kidnapped on the Venlo border, and were interrogated and gave the Germans the order of battle of SIS and lots of information about the British intelligence setup. Real black eye for SIS. Nicholas Elliot was then sent to Istanbul, which was a hotbed of information peddlers, forgers, blackmailers, assassins and courtesans. Many people working for 2 or 3 different countries or masters. And some of the real adventures in the book are a really astounding reading. One of the things was there was a spy who was the Batman to the British ambassador, and he used to read all his documents and reports and sell them to the Germans. And the Germans paid him in forged notes. And after the war, he actually tried to sue the German government for his rewards. So the characters in the book are amazing. Now, even though Kim Philby and the other Cambridge spies were passing pure gold back to Moscow, the Stalinists were always suspicious. They couldn't believe that the British security apparatus would allow all of these guys such easy access, and their ability to gain this material was then suspect. And so even though they were slugging away at the coalface and sending this material back, it was largely ignored. And in fact, the Soviets sent a surveillance team over to London to follow Philby. They couldn't speak English and they got lost. But they covered this up by reporting that he had used tradecraft to elude them. So they were still suspicious of him until a later date. Another character comes into the book from the OSS, James Angleton, and he was friends with both Philby and with Nicholas Elliot. And this friendship between the three of them runs right through the book, particularly the Cold War phase of the story. Ben MacIntyre really illustrates the many lucky breaks Kim Philby had, particularly in when he was working for a section of SIS and MI5, which was specifically counter-espionage. And he was able to then be alerted to any potential defectors, and he was able to delay the defectors being brought in, pass the information back to Moscow, and the defectors were taken back to Moscow and tortured and killed. He had a lot of blood on his hands, particularly during the Cold War with the attempts to set up resistance networks in the Baltic states and so on. But also we had a very, very high-level German spy who, because of his religion, he was Catholic, hated the Nazis and wanted to defect. But he had to bring his wife with him, and the Nazis didn't want to let the two of them out of the country. But finally, they were able to get to Istanbul, and Nicholas Elliot got them out via Cairo back to London, and they were a goldmine of information. But one of the things they did was provide British intelligence with the names of the Catholic resistance network in Germany. And Philby passed this on to the Soviets, and then after the war they were rounded up as potential resistance to the communists, because they were anti-communist, and they were executed. So he had a terrible amount of innocent blood on his hands. And the book really shows the whole story. It's a fascinating story, and also about the world of the clubland spies of British intelligence, and it's illustrated really by I'll just find it on. I just got it here. This was the interrogation or vetting of Nicholas Elliot by a security officer at a fairly early stage, still during World War II. The security officer says to Nicholas Elliot, "Sit down, I'd like to have a frank talk with you." "As you wish, Colonel." "Does your wife know what you do?" "Yes." "How did that come about?" "She was my secretary for 2 years, and I think the penny must have dropped." "Oh, quite so. What about your mother?" "She thinks I'm in something called SIS, which she believes stands for Secret Intelligence Service." "Good God! How did she come to know that?" "A member of the War Cabinet told her at a cocktail party." "Then what about your father?" "He thinks I'm a spy." "Why should he think you're a spy?" "Because the chief told him in the bar at White's." The book is full of anecdotes like that. It's terrific. It really does. It's a really great read of what is already a fantastic story. The story of treachery right at the heart of the British establishment, which is unequalled. And I really do recommend anyone who's interested in espionage, World War II and the Cold War, this is the book for you.